Major drug bust at the Blue Water Bridge in Port Huron prevented more than 400 pounds of cocaine from entering.
Just look at what they uncovered. That's not some small-time operation or a single shipment. It's a full-blown trafficking pipeline, and they just shut it down. Border Patrol agents found 161 individuals being exploited in what appears to be a highly organized human smuggling network. This operation wasn't a casual or opportunistic run. It involved vehicles specifically modified for concealment, meticulously planned routes, and coordination across multiple states. The sheer scale is staggering. Dozens of people, trafficked under dangerous conditions, packed into buses, vans, and trucks, all moving under the radar until vigilant agents intercepted them. Authorities confirmed that alongside the 161 people rescued, they also seized contraband and critical evidence tying the network to larger criminal organizations operating across state and international lines. Every confiscated document, phone, and vehicle piece of evidence is now being analyzed to dismantle the operation completely, track down the organizers, and prevent future exploitation. This isn't just a local bust, it's a major victory in the fight against human trafficking, showing that coordinated federal and border enforcement can disrupt even the most sophisticated criminal pipelines.
161 bricks of the drug, kilos. It was all found during an inspection of the truck. The drugs weigh, get this, 412 pounds. The driver, just a 27-year-old man from Ontario, is in custody for obvious reasons.
Michigan just became the graveyard of the most ambitious drug trafficking operation ever attempted at the northern border. ICE and CBP agents intercepted 2,000 pounds of cocaine and methamphetamine.
That kind of takedown doesn't happen by accident. Operations of this scale are built over years, with multiple layers: recruiters, drivers, coordinators, safe houses, and money launderers. You don't just lose 161 people and thousands of pounds of contraband without shaking the very foundation of the criminal network. When the feds hit this hard, they're not just intercepting shipments, they're striking at the leadership, the planning cells, and the financial infrastructure. A seizure this big sends shockwaves through the network. Smugglers lose trust in their routes, partners, and even each other. Safe houses become compromised, communications get exposed, and the risk of arrest skyrockets. In short, it's more than just a bust, it's a systemic disruption. The ripple effects will likely be felt for months, if not years, across Michigan, the northern border, and potentially international trafficking channels linked to this operation.
Hit that subscribe button as it fuels all the effort behind these videos. September 11th, 2025 started like any other day at Michigan's busiest border crossings. But what happened next would rewrite the playbook on drug interdiction. At the Ambassador Bridge in Detroit, CBP officers selected a Canada-bound commercial vehicle for routine inspection. What they found wasn't routine. Hidden in boxes and duffel bags, 158 pounds of pure cocaine. But this was just the beginning. That same afternoon at Port Huron's Blue Water Bridge, officers discovered 400 individual packages containing 972 pounds of methamphetamine. CBP officials confirmed this was the largest drug seizure at the Michigan-Canada border in recorded.
Exactly 2 record-breaking busts in a single day aren't coincidences. That's a coordinated strike born from intelligence, surveillance, and meticulous planning. Law enforcement doesn't just stumble into a shipment like that. It takes months of investigation, tracking suspects, analyzing routes, and predicting the cartel's next moves. When the cartel got hit on 2 separate fronts simultaneously, it's like a chessboard collapsing. Drivers, couriers, stash points, and distribution channels all got disrupted at once. The ripple effect is huge. Losses in product, trust, and revenue, plus the heightened risk of arrest for anyone still in the network. This is precision law enforcement. Simultaneous hits to maximize disruption, prevent countermeasures, and send a clear message. You're not untouchable, no matter how big or well-connected you think you are. If you want, I can explain how such operations are coordinated between CBP, IC, and other federal agencies to take down multiple fronts at once. It's pretty fascinating. Do you want me to break that down?
Just that got lucky. This was the culmination of careful intelligence work that had identified suspicious patterns in cross-border traffic. For weeks, CBP and ICE's Homeland Security investigations had been monitoring unusual activity along Michigan's northern border, tracking vehicles and drivers that didn't fit the typical commercial transport profile.
This wasn't chance, it was strategy. Federal agents had clearly been tracking the operation for months, maybe even years. They weren't just looking for one truck or one suspect. They were mapping the entire pipeline: who moved the drugs, who financed it, who received it on the other side. They likely used surveillance drones, wiretaps, informants, and cross-border intelligence sharing to trace every link in the chain. And then when everything lined up, when the shipment's vehicles and handlers were all in motion, they hit all targets at once. That's how you don't just seize drugs, you collapse the infrastructure behind them. You make sure that by the time the traffickers realize what's happening, their communications are cut off, their drivers are arrested, and their routes are exposed. That's the definition of precision, not a lucky bust, but a surgical takedown of an entire network.
These seizures particularly significant is their scale. These weren't small quantities hidden in passenger vehicles or concealed in luggage. These were industrial-scale shipments using commercial vehicles as cover. The 1,058 pounds of cocaine seized at the Ambassador Bridge alone would have a street value exceeding $50 million, was cut and distributed across Canadian cities. The nearly
This wasn't just a routine bust. This was a full-scale takedown of an entire criminal empire in a single day. The magnitude of the operation is staggering, almost unimaginable. Think about it. Every layer of the trafficking network, from the couriers and middlemen to the financiers and coordinators, was hit simultaneously. It wasn't a lucky break or a simple checkpoint seizure. This was a meticulously planned strike aimed at dismantling the organization from top to bottom. The coordination required, the intelligence gathering, and the precision execution are nothing short of extraordinary. For the cartel, this is more than a setback. It's a devastating blow that disrupts their operations, freezes their resources, and sends a clear message that law enforcement can strike with unmatched efficiency. In one day, years of illicit planning, international smuggling, and organized crime were effectively neutralized, leaving the network scrambling to recover if it ever can.
They didn't mince words about the significance of the seizures. Preventing just about stopping drugs. It was about protecting both American and Canadian families from a flood of poison.
These are powerful words, and honestly, they couldn't be more deserved. This wasn't simply a case of border security doing its routine job. This was a precision strike aimed squarely at the heart of the cartels, the very organizations responsible for flooding communities on both sides of the border with dangerous drugs and fueling the devastating cycle of addiction. Every pound of cocaine and methamphetamine seized, every trafficker apprehended, represents lives potentially saved and neighborhoods protected from violence, corruption, and the chaos that these criminal networks spread. This operation sent a clear, uncompromising message. The era of unchecked trafficking is over, and the reach of law enforcement extends to every corner where these networks try to hide. It was a show of strength, strategy, and unwavering commitment to protecting communities, demonstrating that no matter how sophisticated or deeply entrenched these cartels may be, they are not untouchable.
Security investigators had spotted suspicious activity at a gas station near the Macomb and St. Clair County border. Two semi-truck drivers were observed transferring items between trailers, a classic sign of load consolidation before border crossing.
That right there isn't just some random truck making a wrong turn. This is evidence of a highly coordinated operation. You don't transport tons of illicit drugs across state or international lines without a meticulously organized network orchestrating every step. From logistics and timing to the drivers and safe houses, every detail is calculated to evade law enforcement. This was a criminal machine operating with precision, and the scale of planning behind it makes the federal takedown all the more impressive.
Redundancy in their operations. If one vehicle is intercepted, others can still complete deliveries. The fact that both vehicles were caught on the same day demonstrates the effectiveness of coordinated border enforcement when intelligence is properly shared between agencies.
This is what happens when meticulous intelligence meets perfect timing. Law enforcement didn't just intercept a single shipment, they dismantled an entire supply chain in one decisive strike. Every link from smugglers and transport routes to hidden caches and distribution networks was disrupted simultaneously. The operation wasn't just a seizure, it was a masterclass in strategy, showing how coordinated planning can cripple an entire criminal enterprise in a single day.
3 p.m. HSI agents began following one truck to the Blue Water Bridge. Simultaneously, CBP officers at the Ambassador Bridge had flagged another suspicious commercial vehicle for inspection. What happened next proved this wasn't coincidence, it was coordination. The driver of the first truck, who has been identified as Harvikramjit Singh, claimed to be transporting oat flour from Wisconsin. But CBP officers weren't convinced by his story. Inconsistencies in his responses during primary inspection led officers to refer the vehicle for secondary examination. There, hidden among containers of oat flour, they discovered 17 boxes and 2 duffel bags. Inside, brick after brick of pure cocaine, totaling 158 pounds.
Over 1,000 pounds of cocaine were cunningly concealed inside oat flour shipments, a brazen attempt to hide their operation in plain sight. These traffickers clearly thought they had baked their way to success, but law enforcement's keen eyes and intelligence networks proved otherwise. It's almost surreal to imagine such a vast quantity of drugs camouflaged as something as ordinary as breakfast oats. Yet that audacity underscores just how sophisticated and bold these criminal networks can be, and how critical precise investigations are to stopping them.
Identified as Syed Shah, was also stopped for inspection. His truck revealed an equally shocking discovery: 972 pounds of methamphetamine packaged in 400 individual bundles. The coordination was clear: 2 massive drug shipments attempting to cross into Canada at different entry points on the same day, using similar concealment methods. By 6:00 p.m., CBP and ICE had seized over 2,000 pounds of narcotics and arrested multiple suspects. The trucks were equipped with sophisticated concealment methods, proving these traffickers had invested serious resources into this operation.
2 trucks, 2 major border crossings, 2,000 pounds of deadly drugs, and these smugglers still believe they could outsmart federal agents. That's not just boldness, that's next-level arrogance. They counted on loopholes, luck, and the vastness of the border to carry their poison across undetected. Instead, what they faced was precision, coordination, and intelligence-driven enforcement that didn't just intercept shipments, it dismantled a sophisticated trafficking network in one decisive strike. This kind of overconfidence is exactly what makes criminal empires crumble when law enforcement acts with speed and strategy.
The vehicles had been modified with hidden compartments that wouldn't be obvious during standard inspections. The drivers had been coached with cover stories that matched legitimate shipping documents. This wasn't amateur smuggling. This was a sophisticated criminal enterprise with significant financial backing. What's particularly concerning to federal authorities is the choice of the Michigan-Canada border as a trafficking corridor. While much of America's border security focus has traditionally been directed southward, this operation reveals that criminal organizations are increasingly exploiting the northern border as an alternative route. The vast length of the U.S.-Canada border, combined with its relatively lower security profile compared to the southern border, makes it an attractive option for international trade.
While much of the nation's attention was focused on the southern border, these traffickers were quietly constructing a highly organized pipeline farther north. This wasn't just opportunistic crime, it was strategic, methodical, and audacious. It represents a whole new level of criminal planning and sophistication, and it serves as a stark wake-up call for federal law enforcement. The fight against organized trafficking doesn't only happen in obvious hotspots. Networks like this can emerge anywhere, and staying one step ahead requires intelligence, coordination, and relentless vigilance.
Port Director Mark Calixta emphasized the critical nature of this seizure. We'll continue to hold the line against the illicit drug trade. CBP officials confirmed that enhanced outbound inspections prevented these narcotics from reaching Canadian distribution networks, where they would have generated millions in illegal profits. This dual seizure exposed a critical vulnerability in North American border security. Drug trafficking organizations are using the Michigan-Canada corridor as a superhighway for narcotics distribution.
It's become nothing short of a superhighway for criminal activity. These aren't just opportunistic smugglers testing the waters. They're strategic, calculating, and bold. They study the system, identify weak points, and then exploit them, transforming what should be secure borders into fully operational trafficking routes. This is organized crime at its most sophisticated, and it sends a clear message. Our borders aren't just lines on a map, they're targets, and federal agencies need to stay one step ahead to shut these networks down before they scale even further.
From the United States into Canada, highlighting a crucial point about North American drug trafficking patterns. While much attention focuses on drugs coming into the United States, this case demonstrates that America also serves as a transit country for narcotics destined for Canadian markets. The two-way nature of this threat requires bilateral cooperation between U.S. and Canadian authorities. Trucks involved in these seizures appeared, on the surface, to be ordinary commercial vehicles transporting legal goods. This camouflage makes detection particularly challenging, as these vehicles blend seamlessly into the high volume of commercial traffic that crosses the border daily.
They're hiding in plain sight, slipping enormous shipments through behind legitimate cover stories, paperwork, and freight manifests that make everything look legal. It's chilling how quickly criminal networks can blend into ordinary trade flows, masking tons of narcotics inside routine cargo and letting them move almost undetected through the system. The result is a terrifying illusion of normalcy, commerce on the surface, organized crime running beneath it.
Almost pull it off.
These seizures represent wholesale shipments that would have been broken down for distribution across multiple Canadian cities. The street value, once cut and packaged for retail sale, would have been in the hundreds of millions of dollars. What makes this case particularly significant is what it reveals about the evolution of drug trafficking methods. These aren't opportunistic smugglers trying to make a quick profit. These are sophisticated criminal enterprises with international supply chains, logistics networks, and distribution systems that rival legitimate multinational corporations. They invest heavily in intelligence gathering, counter-surveillance, and operational security to protect their shipments.
These cartels now operate like multinational corporations with supply chains, logistics, finance teams, and regional managers, except their product is poison that ruins lives. What looks at a glance like a criminal outfit is actually a full-blown enterprise. Procurement of precursors, overseas manufacturing, transport networks, money laundering departments, and local distribution cells. Each link is optimized for efficiency, redundancy, and secrecy the way any global business would be, but with violence, corruption, and addiction as the business model. The scale and professionalism are shocking. They negotiate routes, test concealment methods, coordinate cross-border transfers, recruit couriers, bribe officials, and hide payouts through layered shell accounts, all to keep the operation flowing. That corporate-level discipline means shipments move quicker, reach deeper into communities, and replace one busted route with another before investigators can react. The human cost, overdoses, shattered families, spikes in violence is the ruinous byproduct of a supply chain designed purely for profit. This level of organization also makes enforcement harder. Traditional policing that targets small dealers rarely touches the brokers, financiers, and exporters who engineered the system. Disrupting such networks requires the same kind of cross-border, multi-agency coordination and intelligence-led planning that dismantled large criminal syndicates in the past, following money, seizing assets, and cutting off logistics, not just arresting street-level players. Seeing cartels run like businesses is a stark reminder. This is a strategic problem, not merely a criminal one. It demands strategic responses, new investigative tools, stronger international cooperation, tighter financial oversight, and community-level prevention. Because unless you attack the enterprise at its infrastructure, the harm keeps spreading while the organization adapts and grows.
Something so toxic.
Patient success proves that coordinated border operations can disrupt even the most sophisticated trafficking networks. The Michigan seizures highlight the importance of outbound inspections, checking vehicles leaving the United States, not just those entering. Historically, much of CBP's resources have been focused on inbound traffic. But these cases demonstrate why monitoring outbound traffic is equally crucial for continental security. Drug trafficking is not unidirectional. It flows in multiple directions across North America.
Exactly. Many people think drug interdiction is only about stopping shipments from crossing into the country, but sophisticated cartels work in both directions. They don't just smuggle narcotics in. They often move cash, weapons, and even laundered profits out, sometimes through the same routes. That dual flow makes the networks more resilient. Bust one shipment and another can replace it, or the money keeps fueling new operations. This Michigan case perfectly illustrates why comprehensive enforcement matters. By targeting both the incoming product and the logistics that support it, federal agencies didn't just stop 2 trucks, they disrupted an entire pipeline. They hit the network where it hurts, the coordination, the timing, and the infrastructure that keeps the criminal enterprise running. In effect, it's not just about seizures, it's about dismantling the system that allows smuggling to persist and ensuring these operations can't easily spring back. The lesson is clear. Drug trafficking is a full-scale operation, not random opportunistic crime, and stopping it requires equally full-scale coordinated responses.
These seizures also validates intelligence-driven enforcement. Rather than relying solely on random inspections, ICE and its partner agencies increasingly use data analysis, pattern recognition, and human intelligence to identify high-risk shipments. This targeted approach allows them to focus resources on vehicles with the highest probability of carrying contraband. ICE officials are expanding similar coordinated operations across all northern border crossings. The message to traffickers is clear. Michigan's borders are no longer vulnerable to exploitation. Enhanced screening procedures and multi-agency coordination have turned border crossings into enforcement choke points.
That's exactly how you dismantle a trafficking route, with sharp intelligence, flawless coordination, and no margin for error. Smart, targeted info pinpointed the network's arteries. Synchronized raids across jurisdictions cut off their ability to move product or react, and meticulous timing closed windows the cartel would normally use to regroup. Add airtight evidence collection, rapid asset freezes, and follow-through prosecutions. And the operation doesn't just intercept shipments, it breaks the logistics, the finances, and the command structure that made the pipeline work. No guesswork, no lone wolf blitzes, just a disciplined, multi-agency campaign that leaves the smugglers nowhere safe to hide.
At all northern border crossings. This includes deploying additional non-intrusive inspection technology, increasing the number of K-9 units trained in narcotics detection, and expanding intelligence sharing with Canadian counterparts. The goal is to create an environment where trafficking organizations can no longer rely on the northern border as a path of less resistance. These enhanced measures include more sophisticated scanning equipment that can detect anomalies in cargo without requiring time-consuming physical inspections of every vehicle. Advanced algorithms help identify suspicious patterns in shipping manifests and driver behavior. Increased coordination between U.S. and Canadian authorities ensures that intelligence is shared seamlessly across national.
Exactly, and that shift matters. Border enforcement has moved from reactive checkpoints to a layered, intelligence-driven system that's much harder for smugglers to game. Here's what that looks like in practice and why it's changing the calculus for criminal networks. Real-time data sharing. CBP, ICE, DEA, FBI, and partner agencies now share traveler, cargo, and financial intelligence instantly. When a suspicious truck or individual pops up in one system, alerts fire across agencies and jurisdictions. Advanced sensors and imaging, high-speed X-ray and gamma scanners, non-intrusive inspection portals, and sophisticated chemical sensors make it far tougher to hide large loads of narcotics inside legitimate freight. Automated license plate readers and cameras, fixed and mobile cameras with automatic plate and facial recognition where lawful build movement patterns. Routes and vehicles used repeatedly by traffickers are flagged much faster. AI and link analysis. Machine learning sifts massive datasets, phone metadata, transaction records, travel manifests, to find the small but telling signals, payment patterns, travel routes, repeated PO boxes that humans would miss. Targeted interdiction teams. Instead of occasional random checks, agencies use predictive intel to hit multiple nodes at once. Stash houses, courier networks, routes, so cartels can't just reroute next day. Cross-border coordination. International partners target precursor suppliers, financial conduits, and shipment nodes abroad, closing the escape valves traffickers use to exploit. Remote aerial assets in UAS. Drones and aircraft provide persistent surveillance over transit corridors and remote staging areas that were once safe havens. Financial disruption. Prosecutors and financial crimes units freeze accounts, subpoena payment processors, and follow crypto conversion points, cutting off the money that fuels operations. Mobile forensics and digital sting capability. Undercover online operations, encrypted chat exploitation, and device forensics turn online recruitment and coordination into prosecutable evidence. All of that together creates a digital net that's not just better at catching shipments, it unravels the entire logistics chain: drivers, handlers, stash houses, financiers. For criminals that relied on speed, routability, and opacity, this is a major headache. Raids can now be simultaneous and surgical. Seizures are linked to prosecutions, and assets get frozen before the cartel can reconstitute operations. Bottom line, when intelligence, technology, and interagency coordination move in lockstep, traffickers face far fewer safe options. The era of slipping tons of narcotics through gaps in the system is increasingly coming to an end, but it also means law enforcement must keep evolving as traffickers adapt.
Sides of the border, confirmed Michigan State Police. Border security advocates called the operation proof that American enforcement can disrupt international trafficking when properly resourced. The implications of this operation extend far beyond the immediate arrests. By disrupting an established trafficking pipeline, federal agents have forced criminal organizations to recalibrate their operations. This creates intelligence opportunities as these networks attempt to establish new routes and methods. Each disruption increases both the cost and risk for trafficking organizations, potentially making some operations no longer.
Every time a cartel is forced to rebuild, it burns cash, time, and manpower. That's the real pressure point. Putting it another way, making them dismantle supply chains, replace lost shipments, recoup seized cash, and re-establish trust with suppliers and couriers drains their resources far more effectively than a single arrest. Financial disruption forces recruitment gaps, slows operations, raises costs for security and corruption, and creates infighting, all of which shrinks their capacity to move drugs and commit violence. In short, attack the balance sheet and you make their entire criminal business model far harder to sustain.
And social harm across multiple Canadian cities. By intercepting them at the border, authorities have potentially saved countless lives and prevented immeasurable suffering. The continental nature of this threat cannot be overstated. Drug trafficking organizations don't see borders as barriers, but as opportunities for profit. They exploit differences in enforcement priorities, legal systems, and resource allocation between countries. Effective counter-narcotic strategy requires thinking beyond national borders to continental security.
These criminal networks operate without borders, moving drugs, cash, and people as if geography didn't exist. They exploit weak points wherever they can, from rural towns to major urban hubs, and even across international borders. The only way to fight them effectively is to match that scale, coordinated intelligence across agencies, cross-border cooperation, and targeting the entire network, not just isolated shipments. That's how you disrupt their operations, hit their financial backbone, and make it clear they no longer control the playground.
Multiple roles in global drug trafficking networks. As a destination market for some drugs, a production center for others, and a transit zone for shipments headed elsewhere. This complexity requires sophisticated, flexible enforcement responses. Do you support ICE and CBP's coordinated border operations targeting drug trafficking networks in Michigan? Should enhanced outbound inspections expand to all northern border crossings to stop narcotics flowing to Canada? What's your take on using American highways as international drug trafficking corridors? Comment your thoughts down below.
Once cartels start using U.S. highways, ports, and transport networks like their personal distribution system, it stops being just a border problem. It becomes a full-blown national security concern. Every state, every major transport hub, every trucking route can be exploited, which means enforcement can't just focus on ports of entry, they have to be everywhere, coordinated and proactive. From the Midwest to the coasts, these networks threaten communities, fuel addiction, and launder money. Treating it as a border-only issue is like putting a bandage on a bullet wound. Real protection requires a nationwide strategy, intelligence sharing, rapid interdiction, and disrupting the financial and logistical systems that allow cartels to operate seamlessly across states. This Michigan bust is a prime example of how tackling trafficking inland, not just at the border, can shake an entire criminal empire.
For more breaking interdictions, border security victories, and federal enforcement operations protecting American communities from international trafficking networks, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a major border security operation that keeps poison off our streets.
Every seizure like this isn't just a statistic, it's a direct prevention of drugs hitting our streets and harming families. Each intercepted shipment is one less wave of destruction, one less life caught in the grip of addiction, and one more step toward dismantling these sprawling criminal networks. These operations matter because they show that coordinated intelligence, vigilance, and decisive action can actually make a difference. It's a reminder that behind the headlines and numbers are real communities being protected and real lives being saved. Stay tuned. These stories are about more than arrests. They're about security, justice, and hope for safer neighborhoods.